This is Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is the second largest city in Michigan, located on the Grand River and home to nearly 200,000 residents. Grand Rapids is also home to Calvin University, your new home for the next few years. For over 25 years, the Calvin Service Learning Center has organized an event called StreetFest to connect incoming students to the local community through service and learning. Although StreetFest looks different this year, our hope remains the same, that you become acquainted with Grand Rapids and local organizations doing good work in the local community. According to the Community Research Institute at the Dorothy A. Johnson Center for Philanthropy, Grand Rapids is made up of 37 different neighborhoods, including Heritage Hill, Fulton Heights, Ridgemore Park, and many more. Chances are in your time at Calvin, you will encounter many of these neighborhoods. While we don't have time to introduce you to all 37, we will show you a handful. We hope that you will engage any of these neighborhoods and listen to their stories over the next few years. Let's start with the Creston neighborhood. Creston is located on the northeast side of Grand Rapids, less than 3 miles from downtown. In the 1860s, Creston was settled by Irish, Dutch, Polish, English, and Canadian factory workers who built homes along Plainfield Avenue. As time went on, these Creston residents began to move farther up Plainfield Avenue, expanding the neighborhood. But as Creston grew and expanded upwards, houses in the original area of Creston began to decay. Strong leaders and advocates in the community, such as St. Alphonsus Catholic Church, rose to the task of providing resources and outreach in the community. The Creston Neighborhood Association grew out of grassroots work in the community and is still working towards strengthening the Creston neighborhood through things such as increasing house ownership, stabilizing the business district, reducing crime, and improving education, among many other things. Today, Creston, like many neighborhoods, lives in the tension of growing its economy and fighting against gentrification to ensure that the neighborhood remains affordable for all of its residents. If you walk through Creston, you'll come across murals painted by local artists, numerous parks, urban farm initiatives, and longtime service learning partners such as New City Neighbors or Supper House. Next is Roosevelt Park neighborhood. Roosevelt Park is located in southwest Grand Rapids, bounded by Godfrey Avenue, Burton Street, Century Avenue, Wealthy Street, and Clyde Park Avenue. Over the years, Roosevelt Park has long been the entry point for many of Grand Rapids' immigrant population. In the early 1900s, many Dutch immigrants settled into the area right along Granville Avenue. In the 1960s, during white flight, Dutch residents left the neighborhood to settle in the suburbs. Since the 1960s, Latin Americans, largely Mexican and Cuban immigrants, along with Puerto Ricans, have settled in Roosevelt Park, changing the neighborhood demographic from Dutch to Latinx. Roosevelt Park neighborhood has faced, and still faces, many unique challenges in their community, but advocacy and leadership in the neighborhood have helped them work towards the future their residents hope for. In the 1970s and 80s, gang violence was a large problem in the neighborhood, but organizations like Roosevelt Park Neighborhood Association in the 1990s worked in conjunction with community members and those in the gangs to mitigate violence in the area. Healthcare has been another issue for Roosevelt Park and its largely immigrant and lower socioeconomic population. Leaders in the community know that good healthcare is essential for their residents. Sickness can leave an immigrant family without money for food and other necessities. Thus, Clinica Santa Maria was opened in the community and uses a sliding scale, allowing many in the community access to health care who otherwise might go without it. Over the years, education and the arts have been something the Roosevelt Park community has invested in through the opening of the Granville Avenue Academy for the Arts that eventually became the Cook Library and the Cook Arts Center. Cook Library and Cook Arts have helped provide access to the arts and improve literacy development among children in the neighborhood. Churches and other leaders in the community have also worked to equip local schools with resources and bilingual education. Easttown is a neighborhood on the east side of Grand Rapids, drawn along the borders of Fuller Avenue, Franklin Street, Fulton Street, and East Grand Rapids. Easttown is a community that has struggled with racial tension, especially in the 1960s. The 1960s was a time of social progress through the civil rights movement, but also a time of racial tension and white flight. As racial integration in neighborhoods began across the country and in Grand Rapids, white people at the time panicked as real estate agents came knocking on their doors, convincing them that the values of their homes and neighborhood safety would go down as a result of racial integration. Many white families hastily sold their homes and moved out of the area, resulting in what is called white flight. The 1960s was also the time that then Calvin College, which was then residing in Easttown on Franklin Street, expanded and started moving to the Knollcrest Farm, or our current main campus. Both of these resulted in growing neighborhood instability in Easttown. In the midst of tensions and instability, residents in the community organized with the intent of helping improve their community and advocate for their needs. It was through this that the Easttown Community Association was formed with the help of Aquinas College. Today in Easttown, you'll find an array of small businesses, brightly colored homes, and 2 community parks, Wilcox and Sixby. In Easttown, you'll see plenty of residents walking down the street and the rapid number 6 bus line weaving through traffic on Lake Drive. Easttown is also the home of the Calvin-owned Koinonia Project Neighborhood House, where some Calvin students choose to live intentionally engaging with their neighbors, doing service learning work, and learning about the city. Baxter neighborhood is located right near Easttown and bounded by Eastern Avenue, Fuller Avenue, Franklin Street, and Wealthy Street. Similar to many other Grand Rapids neighborhoods, racial tensions in the 1960s and beyond have had a deep impact on Baxter and its history. Before the 1960s, many white Dutch families settled in Baxter. But during the 1960s and racial integration, many black families started moving into Baxter after being previously barred from living there. Many white families left Baxter, resulting in white flight and neighborhood instability. Neighborhood instability led to problems with crime and a drop in housing quality. Although Baxter was facing many big problems, there were and still are leaders in the community working towards helping Baxter grow stronger and healthier. In 1966, the Baxter Community Center was formed and helped provide meals and activities for young people in the neighborhood. Eastern Avenue, Sherman Street, First, and Neeland Avenue are 4 Christian Reformed churches who, despite the movement of many white Dutch people out of the neighborhood, stayed and instead invested in the Baxter community. Today, if you walk through Baxter, you'll see a number of small businesses along Wealthy Street, the Peniel and Harambe Project neighborhood houses on Eastern Avenue and Franklin Street, kids running around at Joe Taylor Park, community gardens sprawled across the neighborhood, and Wealthy Theater, among many other things. These 4 neighborhoods, Creston, Roosevelt Park, Easttown, and Baxter, are only a handful of the stories of Grand Rapids. But what we hope you realize is that Calvin isn't a separate entity or bubble. It's part of the local community. We hope that during your time at Calvin, you will seek to engage in the city, in many of these neighborhoods, listening to the stories of this place and its residents. We hope that you will seek enriching roots, doing your part to amplify goodness and work towards a just community and world.